This is Anastassia Whitty, and this is how I create.
Welcome to This Is How We Create, a show that digs deeper into the creative life of contemporary artists of color. Discover what feeds their creativity and how they found or are finding their artistic voice. Through these intimate and candid conversations, you'll gain insights into the lives of creative professionals of color that are hard to find anywhere else.
Welcome to This Is How We Create. Today on the show, we have Anastassia Whitty, who is a versatile creative who is deeply involved in photography, videography, and music production. Anastassia studied radio, TV, and film at Suffolk Community College and holds a bachelor's degree in media communication and digital arts from Stony Brook University. Through her work, Anastassia captures emotions across life stages, emphasizing happiness and vulnerability. Her work has been featured in publications like the New York Times, NPR, and the Washington Post. Additionally, she is a music producer mentored by the legend Skay Beats. Anastassia contributes her talents to building the beat community, aiming to put beat makers and producers on the map through her photography and in publications. By showcasing their artistry, Anastassia hopes to elevate their visibility and recognition in the creative world. Oh my goodness. Welcome. Welcome to This Is How We Create, Anastassia.
Hi. Pleasure to be here.
I'm so pleased to have you. So I know we've been calling you Anastassia, but we're going to keep it real and call you by your name, Stasi. You tend to go by Stasi. So, Stasi, I'd love for you to tell us the story, how you fell into photography.
So, photography has been with me for quite a long time, to be honest. I didn't even know that I was into photography since my father used to take pictures of me and my sister a lot with his cameras and stuff. So he pretty much was the influence when we were younger. When I got older, like when I was in my 20s, I was influenced by my stepsister's husband at the time. He was a really poppin' photographer, and I was so inspired by how he shot, like cinematic wise, and it was just always telling a story. And I felt the need that I needed to pick his brain on questions, asking him certain details on how he did this and that with his work. And he would help me in ways by having me critique his own work. So in that way, it gave me an eye, like my own eye, to look after in my work. And I just fell into it. I used to practice on YouTube. I would study stuff on YouTube, and that helped me a lot. I would use Photoshop a lot. Like at the time, I didn't have a camera. I had like a little point and shoot. I would edit from that and bring my camera everywhere I went. When I would say in 2011, I went to my first concert. And it was a backstage concert for a rapper named Currency. I guess I had to get the gab because like they were really cool with me. And I was just exploring myself, like looking at the behind the scenes of like what people were doing, like the photographers especially. And I was just so channeled to that. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be a photographer, a concert photographer. So that's how I started, like actually putting that into motion. And I went to school for it. And like I said, I would bring my camera everywhere I went in the city. And that's how I learned how to fall in love with photography.
Wow, that's such a great story, because it sounds like, you know, it happened in one instance, but it sounds like it was something that just grew and grew over time. And I loved how you were talking about learning to see and learning to sharpen your eye. Do you have other instances where throughout your childhood that you might have been interested in art in general?
Definitely was my father, because he brought us to all these things, especially music. So in a way, the music and art tied together. So everywhere that there was art, there was also music involved. So that's how I carried both with. Also, as far as art's concerned, like I would watch stuff on TV when I was younger. I would, in a way, teach myself based off of cartoon shows, and I would just draw from what I saw as, like, say, for instance, Rocco's Modern Life, like or Hey Arnold even, I would draw as they're moving. So I was always in tune. Like, I was always interested in the art. And photography, therefore, came after when I least expected it. But I realized how it started was with my father.
Oh gosh, I love that. You never quite know how your parents influence you. So I'm glad in this case it was certainly to introduce you to a new world, which is the art world. How did you come to, because you have a very specific style when I look at your body of work. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came to create your own, have your own photographic style? Or is that something you're still working on? We always assume that style is like, you have your style and that's that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I feel like I definitely got my style down pat. Like, and I honestly don't think it will ever change because I'm so comfortable in it. I love telling a story through black and white photography. That's my thing now. Or at least a cinematic approach to it using color, but like a lower saturated type of style with less shadows. So like those help to project the story in a cinematic way for me. I feel like how I started with that was with my stepsister's husband, because he was doing that and I was just so keen to understanding his concept that I channeled it and did my own thing. And just really trying to find that approach to humbly tell a story through a photo, through a lens. So, and over time it did evolve as far as like editing wise, like, you know, how I did the contrast, how I did my shadows and things of that nature. I just, you know, just found a niche. And then black and white, that came about because I was so influenced at the time by a photographer who's well known named Greg Knorr and Parsons. Parsons is Kendrick Lamar's photographer back in like I would say 2017, 2018, 2020. And Greg Knorr, I met him around that time as well. So they had some really interesting black and white that like the haze is so strong and it's just the black points were so high. Like I was just like, man, I love just the way it's just clean. There's, you know, nothing else to it. That itself tells a story if you do it right a certain way. And I just put it in my photos and learned from that, from what I saw from them and from peers that are also photographers that I knew as well. So there's a lot of influences everywhere, but I feel like I found my way through evolving in that way, in that concept.
Oh gosh, I got shivers because I always love to hear how people create their artistic voice because it's so different for everyone. And you don't only do photography, you also do videography. So tell me more about some of that cinematic influence to your work.
I like to do personal projects. So with that, it's a documentary approach that I like to bring. Same way with photography too. So I like to just do a documentary style where it's, you know, more emotional, like it's a serious approach. Telling a story about someone, a person, and where they came from and how far they came from their passions, like things like that. I was always into just finding out about a person through videography and its emotion. So it is even better. It's even more telling. So I've done, when I first started with videography, I started videography after doing photography. I wanted to be a person who interviewed celebrities at one point. And that was like the golden era, 2009 to 2014. That was my time. And I would, just like with photography, carry my camera at every event I went to and try to interview artists, like independent artists. And I made a documentary at one time for my college called The Underground Hustle. And that really helped me so much with like the potential of being more than what I thought I would be as a videographer. So I was able to interview independent artists and a rapper named French Montana at that time. I didn't even know I was capable of doing any of that, but it just showed like my hustle, like my grind to getting to where I wanted to be at with that type of work. And then eventually, you know, that just slowed down. I started falling into photography because, you know, everything goes hand in hand with it. So it's like you take one chance, you take one turn. Then when you're done with that, okay, let's do photography. So it's like always back and forth, but they're always the same in ways for me, at least.
One of the things that you mentioned that we read in your bio is about your interest in having vulnerability in your work. Can you talk to me about how you managed to get that out of your subjects?
Yeah, music.
Oh, that is, I did not expect that. Tell me more.
Yeah, I love music. Like, who doesn't? But like, I have a strong passion for music, whereas it's in every single thing that I do. Like, when it comes to like directing people who I'm taking pictures or doing videos of, I make sure that I have music in the background so they feel comfortable, like music that they would enjoy to be themselves, you know? And I would also remind them that this is something not to be taken so seriously. You can relax, you know, you can talk to me. I have them talk to me about anything they feel at that moment. I would have a conversation with them. And as soon as they're, you know, responsive and comfortable and they're talking, I snap away like it's nothing. And they don't even know it. And it's just like, it comes out in the photos and in the videos after the fact. And they're just so shocked that they look like that. And that's because they're in that moment. You're talking to me. You're not talking to the camera. You're talking to me right now. Yep. So it's a very emotional time, like a one-on-one, like kind of transparent thing that I do with all the people that I shoot with music involved.
Are you often surprised by the type of music that people choose? So question one. And I guess the second question that I have, or the follow-up to that, is is there an overlap in some of the music that people choose? Are you seeing trends?
Honestly, I researched the person beforehand. I have to feel comfortable with that person as well. It's not the other way around. That's why most of my projects are personal, because the only way I can exude like myself in my work is if I know who they are and they know who they are. Like, we're comfortable with each other. As long as we're comfortable, then it's going to be a dope session, you know? So I always research who they're about, and more than likely the music they listen to is the same exact music I listen to, or they're showing me something similar that they like that I actually like as well. So that's never been an issue at all. Or like, I learned from like my clients from Washington Post, or like assignment staff to make from New York Times, and meeting people. I don't know who they are, but reading the article is important. My cat. Reading the article is important, and just having a conversation when I'm with them helps me to understand the type of person they are. And it's so coincidental that we're always involving music too. So at every end of the session, there's always a song that comes out of that assignment that I learned from them, like a song that they like, that like, it's like a story. Like it's amazing. It's amazing. Music is amazing.
So that's your process. Oh, that's so interesting, because this is your process. Did you realize that this was your process?
Yeah. I knew what I have a good level of confidence when it comes to that. Like, I know this is going to work. Like, I come in with that knowing that this is going to work. And it's a manifestation type of thing. That's what I think. So I keep going with it. Like, I go with the flow.
Oh my gosh. No, you're much smarter than me. It took me a long time to figure out that I have a process in terms of the way
there's so many other ways too. Like, I mean, my other process, not to forget, like as far as researching for the assignment, is looking at Pinterest and getting a feel like where do I want to take this? Like, what kind of style do I want it to be? So definitely Pinterest helps that too, like gives you ideas to be inspired by.
A question that I have for you is around any routines or habits that you credit for achieving the success that you currently.
Well, really, it's being around the people that I was around at those times, learning, like my photography peers, learning how, you know, learning through them, like through older people who were in photography. I've been listening to myself a lot, like, and what I want out of it first. Also, like the photographers like Greg Knorr and Parsons, they were people who I was influenced by when I was getting really deep into photography, like honing into myself with my style is definitely, I would say it was definitely them two that stood out in that to get me where I was trying to get to with my cinematic approach and more emotional approach, like portraits, doing more portraits of people and stuff. Definitely was Parsons. He doesn't know it, but I think he might.
You should reach out to him, right?
I didn't know that. That's what I was like. There's somebody who actually watched me for a long time, and I didn't even think about any of that. I'm just like, just doing what I do, and you know, I've been so like the journey has been such a struggle. It still kind of is, but it's been such a struggle as far as like knowing my worth, trying to figure out like my worth, because I didn't know there were people who actually cared, you know? Like there would be like my friends who would tell me, oh, I'm so underrated. And I'm like, yeah, I get that, but that doesn't help me. Like, I don't know who's seeing me. Like, are people seeing me? And at one point I just didn't care about that anymore and just kept shooting. I'm like, let me just keep shooting until something comes up. And it has. But the fact that you found me, I wouldn't even know at all. That's amazing.
I mean, there are some people whose careers I've followed for like 10 years, 15, 20 years.
Fun.
And in some ways, I created the podcast so I could talk to those people. Isn't that completely selfish? Like, I want to talk to you.
That is a really cool blessing. Like for the other person, seeing it at a different perspective. Like I saw when you hit me up, I thought that was such a blessing. I was like, oh my God, because I needed that at this time. Like, you know, I'm going through a lot right now, and having you hit me up in that way really, really helped me to just see like the light in a way. Like there is hope, you know. There are people who actually care, you know, and just, you know, keep focused on your goal and your dream. And I thank you for that.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
really do.
Thank you for doing your thing, for just keeping on and focusing. Because you have there's this thing about your work, and it's so, and I'm like, I look at your work, and sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, that's such an interesting angle she's trying. I wouldn't have thought to do that. So, it's fun to be.
Yeah. I just go with the flow. Whatever I see what I like, it's like, oh, let me take that really quick. And sometimes I take multiple shots. Like, I'm not looking at the lens. I know what I'm trying to get though. So like, just because I don't want the other person to see that I'm like being not a creep, but you know, interfering in their privacy. So I would just like pretend like, you know, like my camera is not on, and I'll just shoot away and get lucky that, oh, that's the perfect shot. Like I just have faith that I'm gonna get some kind of shot, you know. Not every one of the shots are perfect either, but at least there's one that stands out, and I'm just like happy with that one, you know.
And I
So,
think that if you're shooting for emotion, it changes too. It changes
yeah.
what you do and what you're going for.
Yeah.
Because there's like this truth. I don't know. I can't be putting words into your mouth, but I'm always looking for, I shoot for emotion as well. And I'm always looking for truth. And the way you get there is very different. Every artist does it differently.
Exactly. That's big fact is trusting the
Yeah.
process. If you can't trust it, it's not going to come out right at all.
Right. And then it
So,
surprises you.
yeah.
Because I always find, I don't know if this is for you, but the throwaway shots are always the ones that end up being the big ones. I'll be like, oh, I'll just take
Yep.
that. And
Yep.
and then it's the one.
It's so true.
it always. It happens all the time. So
That's
I've come
so
to
true.
trust.
That's just like, you see, that's what I'm saying. Like, music and photography go hand in hand too. Because that's how I feel when I make music. Like I feel like a song is pretty whack, or I'm not interested in it after putting a lot into it. And then I would step away from it and show like my friends, and they'd be like, that's the one. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this is a throwaway beat. Like, you know, like this is nothing. But it actually turns out to be the best beat that my friends or other people ever heard. You just sometimes have to step away from what you're doing and then come back to it. That's
it
really
always
what it
works
is.
that way. So
Yeah.
you credit Ski Beats as being a really great mentor for you. Can you talk to me about some of the things you might have learned?
From Ski, definitely was the music. Also, it was a lot of mental understanding how to be patient when it comes to your art. And trust me, I have no patience. I mean, I'm so impatient with myself, and that's not a good thing. But once meeting him, it helped me a lot to understand that you're going to have to learn how to not be so impatient with yourself and trusting the process. So I've definitely learned a lot about myself meeting him and being around his world of music and the people he knows. Definitely that, and loving yourself. You come first. Those kind of things. Like, not just the music, but the mental. The mental matters. So he's helped me with a lot, like meditation, things like that. So I would say, yeah. Well, first, I have to have a good energy. It would have to definitely be in the morning time to get that creativeness, because I find it that way. The best time is to do that. Having a clear mind, a clear environment, music, putting music on to set that mood. Smells really, really matter. So like I have a lot of like incense that I like to burn, or like oil diffusers that I use to help me relax. It's really all about your environment to help set that. So that's what helps me start. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for specifics. So tell us.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I'm just curious, right? Like, and since you say that when you are on assignment and you're in the flow, you come out with at least a piece of music.
Yeah.
Can you give us a piece, like a song, whether it's something that you've written or
yeah. Well, two stories that I did, coincidentally, they're both Washington Post. So I feel like Washington Post has been giving me the best assignments when it comes to this, because they're all like, you have to know a specific person, a day in a life with them. You have to spend time with them. And I never knew that I would actually fall in love with that. But the first one was a 9/11 assignment that I did. And it was a very sad one because it was about a husband who had cognitive disorder because of the World Trade Center. He was a firefighter, so he was involved with the aftermath, cleaning up and everything like that. But because of it, gave him cognitive disorder, and his family is so supportive, helping him, but he can't talk. He can't. Yeah, it was very sad, but I was able to spend time a day with them at their house. And they were telling me how nervous they were about having me there because they weren't sure if he was comfortable. He's not good with people. And I had faith in it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do my job. I know I'm going to do well. I'm a people person. He'll like me. And he did. Like, we were trying to figure out ways for him to, you know, smile, be happy, whatever. He was not mean, not one time around me. He was smiling all the time around me. And we played his song called Jump Around, right? It's like, jump around, jump, right? And that really set the whole mood the rest of the day. Like they told me they never seen him so happy around a person in a long time like that. And that's his favorite song. And anytime he hears that song, he starts dancing and making this dance. And he was doing that around me. And that really was touching. So that song I added to my playlist. That was Jump Around, that assignment, right? The other assignment, which I recently did in November, was about maternity discrimination in Black women. That's also one of my favorite topics that I did. I met this lady in Connecticut. I had to go to Connecticut to spend a day with her and her son. And she did speeches and things like that for the high school in regards to like health care and getting jobs as nursing and the health fields and things of that nature. And then I had to take pictures of her doing that, picking up her son and playing with her son at the park. After that day, getting to know her, we both happened to be Haitian. So we connected like immediately. And then the next day, because we had really deep conversations, the next day we were talking about my life, and I'm currently unemployed, and I was telling her how it was to be unemployed but leaving a job that was mentally draining and toxic for me, and just going along that journey. So next day she hits me up and she tells me how much she had great pleasure in knowing me and talking, having these great conversations, that she's going to quit her job. And I was like, wait, what? Don't do that. But she explained to me why she was doing it was for the same reason that I did it. It was toxic. And she wanted to find her path, like her goal, you know? She had a lot of goals. So I shared with her a song. It was, oh man, what's her name? It's called Letting Go by Janelle Monáe. Janelle Monáe. That's my girl. How did I forget that? But yeah, Janelle Monáe is called Letting Go. And the song is strictly about work, like letting go of work, a 9 to 5. I'm going to follow my dreams, basically. So that was like the soundtrack of that whole assignment. So those are the two I have so far. To answer your question.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that one of the things that you mentioned, other than those really great songs, is the fact that it sounds like you're freelancing, but you also have another job, or not currently, but in the past you've had another job.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people don't realize that this is what some artists do.
Yeah, that's the only way they can survive. And it's not easy. Definitely not easy. When you want to do something that you want to do, but you have to fulfill your regular life because you have to pay rent and take care of bills and things like that. It's like, it's hard to find a balance. So I learned about that, and I'm still learning how to deal with it going forward. It's definitely not easy. Yeah, it's not easy at all.
I think that, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I have to be honest that I have another job as well, even though I say I'm a full-time photographer. I am a full-time photographer when I'm working, which isn't always, right? And so there are responsibilities that we have. little things like food, paying for water. Thank you, the city of Chicago. You know, it's the reality
major.
of it, and it's some people are really able to do it and have it be intense and go for it, and other folks, you know, we do what we have to do.
You gotta live, right?
You gotta live.
But you definitely, I would say, don't know when to let go of something that doesn't suit you. And that was a challenge for me. I had to let go of my job that I worked for 2 years at it was like Newsday, but they were like such a toxic job. It was horrible. But I knew that like my mental health was deteriorating working there, and I had to make a decision what I was gonna do. Let this job go or let it take full control of me. And I realized that there came to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. I ended up in the hospital. And that was that point where I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So I had to let it go. And I mean, although it wasn't a great feeling, it actually, in a way, was a blessing because I was finally able to focus on my craft, like for a change, like fully focused, not half focused on something. And I did a lot, like with the matter of those few months from June up until now. Like I was able to do shows. I did 2 assignments that I didn't reject, and they were great. I was able to live my artistry, and you just need those moments. But then when you don't have money and you don't have a job or income coming in, it hurts because it's like you need something to support you. So that's what I'm saying. You have to find a balance, like a job that works with your mental health. And that's my journey, trying to figure out what job can I have that will help me and work with me and my mental health. So it's not easy, but I'll get there. I definitely will.
You will get there and you will flourish. I just know it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I take that.
Oh, thank you so much. I have one question that's gonna be not part of this. To have you on the podcast, or is there a question that I didn't ask you that you would have liked to be asked?
No, I think honestly you asked all the questions that I really feel like were good